Hello, Matt.
Hey, Mike.
It's time.
For what?
You know.
I do. Let's do it.
Yeah. Welcome to another exciting episode of Hacking the Grepson, the programming, development related, and things adjacent podcast. One of these days I will figure out what I'm going to say there, but not today. Today on the podcast, we continue our Gamedev development journey, and thank deity, Matt has made something that we can look at and tinker with in Godot. So tell us about that, Matt.
So there was a new version of Godot dropped. It was like 4.6 or something. I don't remember
like the new album.
That's what they say.
I know.
I make it up. And it kept popping up on my Google News. I was like, fine, I'll go use Godot again. And I decided to try it out with Claude Code because, well, frankly, I didn't think it would work. And I was actually pretty impressed with how well it worked. There was a lot of back and forth between Claude Code and also the going into Godot and trying to load what it did, and there was a lot of back and forth there. In particular, at the beginning of trying to get versions working, it kept making 4.2 and this 4.6, and then there'd be import changes. But eventually, I got rid of that. But my goal was to make a very simple top-down 2D sandbox. In fact, The name of the GitHub project is Top Down Sandbox because that's the world that I wanted to play with the most. Is just that standard old school Zelda game. So I started off really simple with I don't like making sprites. I'm not good at it. I can't find the simplest of sprite sheets that I want. So I actually had Claude Code make my sprites, which are very simplistic. It's like a little blue guy and a little red guy that are the exact same sprite, but just color shifted. Mm-hmm. There's some square boxes and there's square walls. Everything's tiles, everything's sprites. And I started off with just you are a character in a room. There was no adversaries. You just were, and I could walk around and bump into boxes. That was my first thing. Then I added an adversary that it hits a box or a wall and it turns right, which was surprisingly difficult to dial in getting it to turn right, because what would happen is it would hit the wall, it would translate the sprite into the wall, and then I would turn it right because of the way the order of operations on collisions was not the way I had it in my brain. So it would turn right, and then it would immediately turn right again because it was still collided with the wall. So I had to mess around with some stuff there.
Need a little
once I got that working
around the entity that it's hitting so it doesn't get stuck in it.
More or less. And then I added a spear, which I also had Claude make for me because I don't know how to draw. That is actually turning out to be the biggest time saver of all this stuff, is getting the scaffolding in place and getting the basic sprites in, because that always eats up so much of my time. And I've spent almost no time messing with that other than adjusting collision boxes and stuff to fit what I wanted. Yeah. And then a lot of the interior logic on making it do things, I've just done by hand as I've been writing it. So then once you got the spear, then I spent a lot of time making it so that the spear could collide with things and have it do what I wanted it to do. Mm-hmm. If an enemy hits you, you die. But if you hit the enemy, you die. But if the spear hits the enemy, it dies, right? Or adversary, as I for some reason decided to call it.
You did.
I blame Daggerheart. That's what they call enemies, as adversaries.
Usually it's enemy or entity or mob.
It should be NPC. That's what it really should be, because I want to be able to do more. So then I added more enemies to it. So you have 5, I think, is what it produces now. Mm-hmm. And then the part that always interests me and I always get stuck on, and which I leveraged Claude heavily for, which is adding the UI elements, right? The non-gameplay part of it. So there's, just like in Zelda, there's a big black bar at the top with a mini map and some stats. It's here's your inventory, which is empty. when you start, and here's a count of the dudes, and here's how long you've been playing for. Got that working with a lot of the mini map is literally a rendering of the actual game shrunk down. Like I didn't even do any work for that.
I was wondering how you did that.
I just wanted to prove to myself that it was doable, that I could have something up there, and then it worked. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, really, I would want it to be more like Zelda, where you walk into a different room and it adds. That's the thing I like in a lot of exploration-type games, Zeldas, Metroidvanias, is you went into this room and added that thing. I don't need all the details of the room on my map. I just need to know where things are relative to each other.
Yeah.
Got all that working, and then I added start and end conditions. Basically, you start, when you die, you can restart, and if you kill everyone, you can restart. And there's like different game ending scenes that show you that. It counts down the adversaries as you defeat them. And that's kind of where I stopped before I threw it over the wall at you. I said, Mike, come check this thing out. Do we like how this looks functionally, like how it works?
Functionally, yes.
And because it's not intended to be a game. It is very intentionally like, learn how to make this kind of game. Learn how to make this kind of game in Godot. My goal is to have this be templatable. So we could be like, great, here's our sample project that is like, it works like this. We get all our patterns and whatnot of like how we want to organize things. Like I don't like how objects are set up right now. That's a big thing I want to change. And I haven't played around yet with multiple rooms. But like getting the basics of those kind of things in, I want to get that. And then start saying like, okay, I have an idea for XYZ. Let's go try it out in this thing so we can rapidly prototype, find a thing that we like, and then run with that and make a game.
Now, I just want to back up a little bit. That was great. Thank you.
Beep, 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 beep.
When you had, diddly-oop time. When you first started this project, you had no code, you had no directory, no files. Was the first thing you wrote that Claude Markdown file?
No,
How does that work?
Did that. Okay, so normally, yes, that is what I would do. I would go in and I would create a new directory. I'd get in it so that so I could inevitably fix the thing I accidentally overwrote. I always do that. And normally I would create a claude.md file immediately and describe what it was I was trying to do. Or I do what I did here, which is I do all that. I do the part where I create a directory and do a get in it, and then I open Claude and I tell it what it is that I want to do in just like natural language, my words, just like I'm thinking about this. And then I tell it to create the claude.md file, which is what it did. And like,
okay,
so that it has its own knowledge. Because normally what you do with when you bring Claude into a project is you'll go into that project and you'll open Claude and you'll type /init and it'll go and read everything in there and kind of like bring it together into that claude.md file. That's like, it's working memory, basically. That's the way I think about it. But I actually would prefer if it had more of an overview and something I want to do to it. And I did tweak some of it, like the README I wrote most of it. And I told it to base some of the claude.md file off of that. And then it's also and then now it adds to the README as a to-do. But I went in there and basically was like, I want to make a top-down sandbox in Godot for blah, 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 blah. And then I didn't do what I think of as vibe coding, which is like, I want to make this giant thing go. Have fun. Do it for me. I said, here's my goal. Let's start with this. Make a room. And it started as just like a 320 by 480 room. That was the whole screen that I can't walk past the edges of. Like put a player character in there and it can't walk off the edges. I just want to be able to walk a character around. Great. Put some obstacles in. Great. Put some walls in. Right. And I would describe like each individual step. I built it as I would build a program myself. Like I need something. Give me an empty room. Put a character in there. Make it so I can walk that character around. Add an obstacle. Do collisions. Like one step at a time, which I find very useful for myself from learning. And I also just generally find the code I'm writing to be much better when I do it that way, because then I can stop it from doing insane things early. I'm like, no. Why did you organize it like that? That's dumb. Like I did just let it go on the spear, and I don't like how that came out specifically. But at that point, I was in the groove, and I wanted to keep making things happen.
So, roughly, what percentage of the code in this project is completely written by Claude versus you?
Probably 80, 85. It's high.
Okay.
Most of my code is tweaking of things it did. Like I got it to put the framework together, and I went in there and like, I don't like this behavior. Mm-hmm. And if I don't know how to do something, I just go back over to Claude. I'm like, actually, you know how it's a static, screen? Let's actually make the playable area 4 times that big, and you figure out how to move the camera around. Because I don't want to think about that. That's not writing a game to me. That's learning how to use Godot, learning how to make a camera. And I'm not trying to do anything crazy with like anything groundbreaking with what a game is. Like, theoretically, I should be able to do this in like Game Maker or any like. There's templates out there for all sorts of these kind of things, right?
Yeah,
but I don't like any of them, so I'm making my own.
Yeah, basically, you could pick a programming language that has some kind of visual output, and or can create something that can then be viewed. So, but something like Godot it's ready for you to do this. Like it knows this is what you want to do with it. You're not going to make a text editor or an embedded system. Right. You're making a video game with visuals, and I think what you're getting at with the Claude thing, because once again, just to reiterate, like I've never used Claude itself. I've seen you use it. I've used ChatGPT a lot as just half rubber duck programming and half like, hey, I don't understand this concept, or I want to do this, but I'm not sure how to start. Can you give me an example? Basically Google++, as we've said in the past. Yeah. It's really good at doing that. But to come in to an empty project like this and say, Claude, I want to make this type of game, or I want a room that exists on a screen. Make that. And now put a player in there. Now put some obstacles. Now make sure I can't go past these walls. Now throw some enemies in there. Like, I really like that iterative process.
Yeah.
As opposed
I don't like
to
the concept of vibe coding. Just like give it the problem and have it run with it.
Right.
Because I've seen the results of that.
Yeah, like so.
I don't like them.
So essentially, you want to break it down into smaller and smaller problems that you iterate on slowly, and then you can there's less code for it to write, less code for you to review, and generally it's changing less, because it's just like whenever I do any work on any project, and I think about it in a Git way or in a atomic commit way, I want all of those changes to be as small as they can be. Because as they balloon and get bigger and bigger and bigger, especially like right now I'm working on a PR at work that is ballooning in size, because like as I'm working on it, I realize, oh, whoa, I also need to now make changes over here and over here and over here. And by the time it's done and ready to be reviewed, it's going to be kind of a monster, which is not what you want. You want the smallest change possible so that you can go back on it and it's easier to understand. So
And in this case, I want, like, just like if I said, hey, Mike, we're working on this project together, I need you to go build this part. I'm going to want to look at the output of that so I understand it. Also, code reviews are just generally a good idea to make sure someone didn't make a mistake. But my reason for doing it is I want to understand what's going on, right? Like, if I had you create player.gd, I'd want to understand what it did, right? And I do. It's a very straightforward little piece of code. I had used Godot several years back, and I really liked it then, but I felt like it might be overkill for what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And then after we played around with all those other tools, I was like, nope, this is the right level.
Okay, so you're on board with Godot. Like, this is how you want to make a game?
I still don't love that it really wants me to do everything in its IDE, but I can bring it into Visual Studio. I looked into it, and I'm like, okay, fine. Is it Visual Studio? No, that's not the right thing.
Code.
What do they call it? VS Code. Thank you. I went back to my old Windows programming days there for a second. I don't even have a Windows machine. And I like it. It's very similar to some of the other ones we used in how it breaks things up. It's got like scenes, and it's got like scripts, and it's got assets and all those things, like the same basic game types. And I generally like the way it works. I think it actually does use a sprite sheet as opposed to I don't remember which one of the games, which one of the things we were playing with. Not Box 2D.
Defold?
What were the?
You mean
Defold? Yeah, it was Defold, I think.
Yeah,
where you could just like create individual images
Yeah.
That was nice. But now that I know how to just like tell Claude to make a sprite sheet, I'm not as worried about it. I was like, great, I understand this concept now. That part is not something that I need to learn how to do. That's not a part that's interesting to me. I would just as soon outsource creating the sprites, but I do need something to play with.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You played around with it for a little bit. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I did. So, I mean, Godot, as I think I've said before, reminds me of Defold. It's an IDE. It's got panels and consoles and everywhere. It's definitely a little overwhelming at first, coming from writing it in VS Code or writing it in just a text editor. So it's already like, okay, I'm in Godot. I'm doing a thing in Godot. I'm not editing text files in anything. And I'm looking at like the first thing that it does when you open it up, it shows you the test room and it shows a visual of the walls and your player character and the HUD and everything. And, it has these things at the top. That's the 2D workspace. There's also a 3D workspace if this game were in 3D, which shows, a crazy XYZ plane in an infinite abyss, which is neat, but not what we're using. And then you've got the script thing where it's, if you double click on a script, it would automatically take you over here. And this is where the README files would be and where the things that control how things function is. And then there's this game.
And that's more or less where I just live in this while I'm playing with it.
Yeah, and that's where I would live too. But it definitely takes a little getting used to having these multiple panels with their own tabs, and then this like uber mega nav with the 2D, 3D script game thing, because sometimes you click on something and it switches you to one of those. It's a little bit too easily. And then when you're in a script thing, it has its own list of things that you've opened, on the left side that can then be closed. And I remember having a bit difficulty of once I started opening things, how do I just get back to the first thing I saw, which was the 2D overhead thing of the room. I think I had to close the whole project and reopen it because I couldn't figure it out. Just long story short, there's a learning curve to just being in Godot and messing around with stuff. But, I've used enough software to, not be completely overwhelmed and, click around on stuff. I was able to change like the number of enemies. I was able to change like when an enemy or an adversary gets created, it has a random chance of being twice as fast as another one. Like having a little random number generator in there. So some of them are at 50, some of them are at 100, depends on when they get created. So yeah, I mean, I can work with this. I like this. I think where I ended up in both Lua's thing that we were messing around with and in Defold is one of the first things on your README, or no, not one of the first. Yeah, it is the multiple rooms idea.
Yep.
Like I feel
That's
like
the first to do I think I have on there.
Yeah, we've definitely both gotten multiple times to a state where you are in a room and you have the boundaries of that room, but no way of going to another room without like the idea of like, oh, I picked up all the things and now a door opens. But I don't think I even made it to the thing where I go to the door and it loads a new level. So that's one of those, that's one of those fundamental things about all of these tools that I feel like is still a blocker for me, is this idea of modularizing the room or the scene or the whatever or the level, and then being able to make multiple ones and easily know how to transition between them. And if we want to do, which is definitely something I'm interested in doing, the Zelda-like, but maybe like in a different theme or a different world, is being able to move between rooms, but it not be like I don't know, the first thing that comes to mind is Bubble Bobble. You kill all the enemies and you go to the next level. Like it's
I don't want it to be a level. I want it to be a room.
Right. It's a world, but it's segmented. And right now, the whole world is a segment. And I want to be able to understand how to add more segments and freely move between them without it being a level finishing trigger.
Well, if you open the testroom.tscn file under world, I think it's scenes world specifically, that defines what the world looks like. And there's like a separate one for the UI as an example, right? That's got a separate scene than test room does. And so what I expect the next step is going to be is that each individual room then becomes a scene. And when you walk through a door, it will then load a new scene and reposition your player. So that's like the next big thing I want to play with in this. That and fixing how items work, because I want it to be more closely tied with the player and less like it's literally the scene that got created.
It has the spear in it.
Yeah, it's called spear pickup.ts, and I'm like, why?
Right.
Why? That's a dumb. It should be called spear, and it should be an item, and it shouldn't be part of the world.
Right.
It just is, because that's how I created it. So like now I need to move that. You and I both created text adventure games before, and so like the way I've created text adventure games is I have in my I have a almost like a global. Here are objects. Here's where they are, and like each object has a location. And each room has a link to an object and all that stuff, right? Everything knows about itself. It's just a matter of switching into it. So when I go into a new room, I just load the room. I think the same thing will be true here. I just need to get I want to build this in the way that I think about games. And I think that's the way I think about programming, and the way, not necessarily the way I'm told to do it. I'm like, how does it work for me? Let me put that abstraction layer in here on top of however it actually works.
Yeah.
Which is the first thing I do with basically every type of programming I do anyway. So it works out well.
Yeah, I'm thinking that like a spear would what's the right term? Inherit like an entity object. Like everything in the game, a player, a spear, an enemy is an entity that has some base level attributes, and then a spear is a
collisions
type.
Or not.
Yeah, collisions or not. Can be killed, has HP or not, drops something when it is removed from the world because it's an enemy and it drops coins or something. And then and then that's like a mechanic that a scene can call, like, hey, when you go into this scene, if it's like the first time, make sure to create an instance of the spear over here because they haven't picked it up. And now that they've picked it up, the next time they come in the scene, it won't create it again because they already have it. Like it's like that kind of ability.
Exactly. So those are the kind of things I want to do with this sandbox.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep playing in here, and then I think eventually what I'll do is I'll take this and distill it down into like building blocks that we can then use to build a game, right? That's like, here's your room object. Rooms can do these things. They have whatever, right? And then that way, when we go to build things, we say, I want a room, and it has this, and it is built, and it has these things in it. And maybe we draw that room. This part I haven't gotten to yet, personally, is how we actually define where things are in the room. I have it literally randomly putting boxes in there, and my only constraint was don't put things on top of each other.
And then I'm assuming...
Same with like the spear and the enemies.
Yeah, and I'm assuming when you load a player or an enemy, another constraint is don't load this enemy on top of an obstacle or a wall.
That's what I'm saying. Nothing can load on top of itself. I don't have anything.
Yeah.
That's like my one constraint in the randomness when it loads is how to do that. And I think that's in the actual test room script. Maybe spawn obstacles. And there's like something in there where it finds a valid position. Yeah, that's what it is. It had been a minute since I did this. So in testroom.gd, there's a find valid position, and everything that we do, it's like spawn obstacles, spawn adversaries, spawn spear, and they all use that find valid position to make sure you're not stepping on something. And there's like a safe radius. Yeah. So like this was a very iterative process with me and Claude in defining how I wanted that stuff set up, because that was an important thing. If I like the idea of somewhat procedurally generating things. It doesn't necessarily have to be like this enemy starts in this spot, right? But there's an enemy in this room. Pick where it is, right? There's 7 obstacles in this room. This one's movable. Put them wherever they make, whatever. Like being able to say how much space does this object need around it to be functional, right?
And it feels like that kind of function is something that should be put in like an entity class, not in the room, because that's something you want to be able to call whenever an entity comes into the game.
Exactly. One thing I still don't like, and I want to see if there is a way to like fix this, is I really would like to somehow better associate, or like from a organizational perspective inside of the repo, like actual file structure. I don't like that a character right now has sprites in its own sprites, characters, player sheet.png. That's one folder. In another one, actually, it's assets, sprites, characters, player sheet. Then there's scenes, characters, player. And then there's scripts, character, player. In my mind, I want those all co-located. But maybe it makes sense to not do that and just still keep like the images over there or the definition of what the world looks like over in this other place or something. I really want to have it, as an example, where I could define what the room looks like in like a text file with like symbols, like NetHack, right? And have it then generate that into a real room, as an example. And then maybe an overworld, and then maybe like a high level map that's like this room goes to this room, goes to this room, goes to this. Right?
I mean, that sounds like something, you could create and then have Claude be like, okay, when you see this kind of text file, here's what these things mean. Now turn that into code.
Yeah. No, I want that actually to be how Godot or Godot, however, because I've heard it's pronounced like the creators call it like Godot, like robot, like is how they pronounce it.
Okay.
But that Godot is also accepted because of waiting for Godot.
Yeah.
But like I want to have a class that's like a map is defined like this. It consists of rooms, and then rooms are defined like this. They consist of objects or whatever, right? And then I want to say like on load world, read this text file on the screen on my thing, and then have it derive everything from that. Like that's how I personally would want to build the game, because I don't want to come in here and build in the scenes. If you go to like 2D when you've loaded a scene, like it actually, if you like take testroom.tscn and then click on 2D up at the top, you can see that it's actually like there's what the world looks like. But I don't want to draw all that. But we might want to. We might want to say, that's way easier. Let's just say like, you know what? There's a tile here. I want to be able to go click, 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 click.
Well,
and then it's done. But I find it easier to edit text files. And that's how I think. So I kind of just want to be able to say, build it there and then load it in Godot.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It really feels like a top-down versus bottom-up approach. The top-down is just go into Godot and do it the Godot way, and the bottom-up is more like, no, I want to do it in this way because I understand that. Now make Godot work with that.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know at this point whether I can even make that decision to do, even though I don't
know either.
I like the bottom-up approach. The bottom-up approach with having these text files that basically define the world is that it's almost like a form of serialization, and it would be easier to, if you then played the game for a while and made changes, like you picked up things, you killed enemies, to re-serialize it back in, and then when you load it,
exactly,
as opposed to however Godot might want you to do something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason I think like that. The other is if I want to just try something out, it's really easy for me to open a text editor and add a character. And it's not necessarily easy for me to open Godot, find the scene, remember what page I have to look at for blah, blah, blah. So I want to make our part of the development, like the part that's actually like building a game, more simple. Because I don't care about stuff like how to put a wall somewhere. I just want to say put a wall there. And a wall means you can't go through it. Right? Put a door here. What does that door go to? That door goes to this other room at this door, right? Like if I walk in the top door of one room, it should come in the bottom door of another one. It'd be weird if I walk in the top and come out the top.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Plenty of games. I'll walk up like the top and it'll decide like, okay, you went down the stairs and actually you came out in the middle of this room up like it's just random stair.
I can even think of something like in Zelda, because that door is a staircase. And now you're up a level, but you're still at the top. So
yeah. So I'm trying to get all the elements in here. Like the mini map that I have today is not the mini map I want for the real thing, because it's literally rendering the room you're in.
The whole game
twice.
Inside of itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably not what we want.
If it gets
including enemies, like you can see the enemies move around if you look really carefully.
Like,
and I definitely don't want that.
If the game stayed simple enough, that might work. But as soon as it gets past the complication level, running the whole game inside of itself will probably blow up.
Exactly. Like, I think it's weird, for example, that if you look at the test room, there's a right wall. Like, why isn't there just walls that you can't walk through? So that's the thing I'm going to clean up. But that wasn't the thing I cared about at the time. It was, can I get things inside? Like, I defined a game space. That's the walls.
Right. Well,
and then everything I've been worried about is inside that right now.
Right. Well, and I'm assuming that when you were doing this with Claude, like at some point it just was test room, background, floor, and player, and then you were like, I need walls, make walls on all the sides, and it created wall, top, bottom, left, and right.
I added yes.
Okay.
I added the walls when I expanded the size of the room, but not the viewport of the camera. When I wanted to be able to show just a portion of the room, it became really unclear when I was getting near the edges. And I also didn't want I also trying to set the camera up, I didn't want the camera to pan past the wall. I wanted to stop. So like you might notice when you're playing it that as you walk, when you get near, say, the top of the screen, it stops moving the camera.
Yeah.
Right. And this is very consistent with every other 2D top-down game I've ever played in my entire life. So I'm trying not to reinvent the wheel, but I want the wheel that I'm making to be easier to define.
I would be really, really genuinely curious if your session with Claude that you used to get to this point had like a log, at least of like what you told it and what it said, not necessarily the code it spat out, but just like a chat log of, hey, Claude, I want to make a blah. Okay, now add a blah. Now add a blah. And like roughly what it did. That'd be really cool because because since I have not done that, I don't really have a good idea of how that process goes. So I don't know if you can do that, but that would be cool.
You can. I didn't. I think is the
you didn't keep that log of that happening.
Right.
I mean,
I think also Claude has added a lot of features, even in the couple of weeks since I wrote this.
Oh my god!
And like its ability to like keep memories around is a lot different than it was before.
Because I mean,
but I have.
There's the commit log, obviously, so I can see its summary of what it did, but I'm more curious to know what you told it that resulted in that.
Okay, actually, I found it.
Okay.
So the Claude, I've done all of this so far in a single Claude Code session. Just I opened it once, and I started off with. Actually, it was technically two because the first one I did, there was some issue with trying to get to create the repo and have Claude Code interact with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm very specifically not using Claude Code in the terminal. I'm using Claude Code through the Claude app, which actually is everything is going through GitHub in order to load anything. Partly because I wanted to see if I could do that. And so actually the opening of this session is the output of a previous session. I said, okay, well, I got to start this over again. I'll go create the repo. I'll set it up. And then I just want to be able to drop something into a session and say, go. All the stuff that I'd already decided. So this one starts off with context for new session. We're building a top-down sandbox game in Godot 4.3, which is wrong. The repo is repo name. Important Git note. The previous session couldn't authenticate with GitHub, so the initial commit exists only locally. The GitHub repo is empty. If the working directory also contains the project files, push them first, right? So it's got a bunch of stuff. And then it's like, here's some basics about the game. Here's the file structure. Use this. Because I'd gotten it pretty far before I realized, like, oh, I can't save anything. And then everything else is just me like, all right, let's just start with a really basic setup. A single room, walls all around, no entrance or exit, with one player and one adversaries and some obstacles. Adversaries can just walk forward, and if it hits a obstacle wall, it turns right. Players should be controlled by arrow keys and blah, 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 right? Like I did actually list that out in one thing. I'm like, do this. Now, start with just that. Then I didn't like it, and I was like, and then my next prompt, which was very much later, was like trying to debug the adversary turning thing that I described earlier. And then fixing the camera, and then making the room bigger, and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, every step is a step of the way. So I do have a log of most of that.
You know, I'm also noticing that if I hover over the commits, it has a huge block of text, which I'm assuming is your prompt or its summary of it, or its summary of what it did, maybe. So
where are you seeing that? In GitHub?
Yeah, in GitHub, in the commit log, if you hover over one of the commits, there's a huge block of text that appears in a tooltip, which I'm guessing is its summary of what it did in that commit.
Probably, because I haven't, because it's done, like you can see when I do it, because it's got like nothing in it. It'll just be like.
And also, like, you added the Claude.md almost as the second to last change. So you did a lot.
Because this was me going, all right, I'm done. Because I did all this in like an afternoon.
Yeah.
Like the first submission is March 3rd at 4:48, and the last one was at March 4th, less than 24 hours later. And that was me having come back in the next day. Because almost everything I did in over the course of like 8 hours, off and on, while sitting at my chair from like 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing, I came in the next day and basically did some cleanup so that I could come back to it later. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm going to stop until Mike's had a chance to look at this. And that was 10 days ago.
Yeah, and then I took a long time to finally look at it. I apologize.
Well, we haven't met since then either.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, looking at it now, looking at your project, looking at the commits, I feel all of a sudden very much at a disadvantage not having a Claude subscription, because just to clarify, like, to do this, you pay for Claude to get this kind of work out of it, right?
Yep. Because I use it for all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Not just writing this game.
Right.
I made my whole website, which is really crappy, through Claude as a means of learning Claude.
Yeah.
I have projects so that I can learn tools most of the time.
Yeah.
So this was a tool for me to learn how to do Godot, really, because I knew Claude by this point.
Yeah.
But then, like, I wrote a whole thing for our Daggerheart thing, a campaign that we're doing. Like, I wrote Claude skills, and I have like a whole integration with Obsidian, and like treating it as a database and blah 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 that I wrote as a means of learning how to do that stuff in Claude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So like, I often have projects in order to learn things.
Right.
And then I can apply them easily.
I guess my point is just that because I currently don't use Claude, like trying to come into this project and work on it in a manual way feels wrong or bad. Like, I don't know if I should or if I need to get on the Claude train to continue this. Because
you don't have to.
You're obviously on the Claude train, and I have not jumped on a train yet.
But you can see, like, I jumped in plenty of times and made tweaks. Like, you can see where Claude made the change versus where I did.
Right.
And yeah, the commit message for when Claude does it is, here's a whole bunch of stuff. And then when I do it, it's like, update to 4.6.
Right. It's
update adversary logic to wait 0.3 seconds before turning a second time. Like, that's the extent of, because I'm not doing much. And when I am, I'm mostly doing it through Claude. This was me trying to learn how to make it so that I could do Claude code in this way, like not through my terminal. Trying to actually use it and do the full loop through GitHub was where this started as a process.
And that process versus using it in your terminal, because since you're doing this in Godot, not in VS Code, you don't have that faculty. And
I could. I wanted to be able to do this without using my work computer at all, and make sure it's only using my Claude subscription and not doing anything through Works. Right? Like, I'm trying intentionally. I'm very, very intentionally not using work
resources.
Resources. That's the word I wanted. Yeah. Work resources to do this so that I can do it. You know, I might pop open Godot and play the game on my on my work computer. Why not? But I'm not writing it on the computer.
Yeah.
And that was important to me. But I can also just hop into a Vim session and edit it, or go into Godot and edit a file and then commit it if I want to.
So I guess the kind of the question I'm dancing around here is, like, I assume that you will use Claude to make this game that we're working on. And if I don't know, I haven't made up my mind one way or another, but like, if I decide not to use Claude and I start monkeying around with this regardless, do you think that's an issue or a liability or what?
No, I don't think it's an issue. It might make it harder for you to do things, but it shouldn't stop you from doing anything. It might be that you, just like you would do with like ChatGPT, which I know you do already, you'll go and be like, how do I do this? Mm-hmm. And it'll tell you, and then you have to go manually do it. Mm-hmm. Or Like that's basically the step that Claude Code saves me is I'm like, how do I do this thing? And be like this. I'm like, I like that. Go do it. It does it for me. Right. It's just a laziness step, really. But there's no reason you can't just like, my hope is that I don't use Claude for the actual like real game.
Oh,
I want to
okay.
use it for creating this, this framework that I'm building so that when we go to write the real game, I don't even need Claude. Like, why would I need Claude Code then? It should be so simple to build what we want. And then if we have some weird esoteric thing that we can't understand, or I can't figure out how to make Godot do what I want, I'll go back over to one of the AI things. But make that work. Like, I know what I want it to do. I have this piece working, but I just need them to connect, right? And there's no reason necessarily to use Claude. That's just how I think I've used this analogy on the show before. If not, hey, red letter day. LLMs are just another abstraction layer on top of regular coding. You don't write in binary.
Right.
You don't write in assembly. You're not even doing machine code. You're doing a level above that where you're writing in a standard programming language that then is interpreted down into those things. Well, I'm taking another step above that with something like Claude Code, and I'm basically just doing the design work and doing very little of the actual going into the file and editing code thing, because honestly, my brain doesn't have room for how all these things work anymore. Just like I don't know the assembly instructions off the top of my head to put a value in a variable.
Right. Yeah. I've spent, a moderate amount of time on this. I think I've mentioned it before, this one YouTube channel that breaks down old Nintendo games and looks through the assembly and the hex, like dumps of them to try and fix things like, hey, why does old Nintendo game have stutter or glitching in this area? Why is there slowdown in this area? Oh, it's because
there's too
they
many
coded
enemies.
it this way. And if I make these changes using 40 years of universal programming knowledge that they didn't have when they wrote this, I can make that stutter or glitch go away. And it's like magic. It's like watching some old Nintendo game get fixed before your eyes. It's crazy. But yeah,
because the capabilities we have are so much better now.
Yeah, but
to do that before, you'd have to go in like, I have to re-architect this whole thing to fix that, and literally that was doing it by hand.
Yeah, well, and it also taught me basically what this guy is doing is what Game Genies did. It's going in and making little changes to variables.
Yeah.
To
it would
give
just
you
do
more
it
lives
on
or
the
something.
fly as you did it.
Yeah, it was.
Because a Game Genie basically rewrote the ROM.
Yeah.
And you were playing that rewritten ROM.
Yeah, which I never really gave much thought to the Game Genie back then, but now it's like, okay, I get it. That's awesome. But no, I get what you're saying, and I wanted to clarify something you said, that using an LLM in the way we're doing it to make this kind of like throwaway code, it's a tool to make it go faster. Yes, we could be doing all the grunt work, writing all the code and the variables, but because it's grunt work for a project that's going to go away, then it's different than if we made a game, i.e. vibe coded the whole thing, and then said, done, period, put it on Steam.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, like, I don't intend to necessarily throw this code away, but I don't intend for this code that I'm writing to be the game.
Yeah,
I want to
that's what I meant, sorry.
I want to use Claude to build the building blocks of the game.
Yeah.
In a way that I then don't have to rely on an external brain to build the thing, because I don't have time to go and look up everything anymore. I'm not 20.
Mm-hmm.
I have a job and a child and a wife and commitments and trash to take out and whatever. And I'm tired all the time.
So what you're saying is like this project would maybe not go anywhere without the technology that it has, blown up in the last few years.
I have found a resurgence in my interest in creating software as AI has bloomed, much in the same way I found when learning Python, right? Because the difference in coding C and coding Python is significant because it's a higher level language, right? And I don't have to think about things like memory management when I'm doing that. And that speeds it up significantly. Having the print eval loop thing right there, the REPL, and just being able to like go in and be like, help function, look at the thing and be like, oh, do I want to do it? And then like typing it right there and be like, oh, yeah, that's how I want to do that. And then plopping it in was a game changer for me. And this is just the same thing in my mind. So using it to do the dull, irritating parts of game development that are solved problems and frankly should just be done already anyway. Like, and that's what something like RPG Maker does, right? Is it's already, I just want to do it my own way. I don't like the way those work because the part I care about is down at a level that those things don't let me change. So I want to make like, I want a very simple, like it doesn't need to do anything fancy with walking around, you know?
Right. You press a key and you move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I do want it to be like, okay, if you double tap this, I want you to teleport across the room. Well, I need the ability to somehow do that. And either I write the game engine from the ground up or I have something that's flexible enough to let me do that.
Yeah.
And so finding that, I'm trying to build that balance of have a system that I want to build in. Like, honestly, if I get this thing to work the way I want, I'm going to release it as open source and be like, here's a game engine I wrote for Godot.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure those exist already, in fact, but
they weren't written by you.
Right. Well, they don't work the way that my brain works.
Exactly.
I approach things differently than most people do. And that's okay.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
So there was something that you told me earlier off
mic
recording. Yeah, off mic, off of you. That is a huge missing piece from when you first opened it up. That you were like, it needs this thing. What was that thing, Mike?
It needs sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and that's another place where you and I think about things very differently. I'm like, whatever, sound's an afterthought to me. And you're like, it's such a critical piece of the game. And that's one of the reasons that I want to do this kind of thing with you.
Yeah.
It's because you approach things differently than me. And so we can find like, yeah, we should absolutely be thinking about music and how we want to do it now.
Yeah.
So like you could go in and start like adding sound effects and adding music to this project. In fact, please do. You have write permissions to this repo. Maybe I need to stop committing directly to main and start making pull requests now that we're both going to be working on it.
Perhaps.
Right? But right now, it's a sandbox. As long as it doesn't break anything, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should probably start doing pull requests. I might force that in.
I'm glad you appreciate that part about my interest because I think and I think it's, even if it's not the music or the sound that pulls you into a game, I think it's those ineffable things about a game that are usually brought in by the sound or the visuals or the theme or the whatever, because people have been making games for a long time. Truly unique games that are like mechanically like so different from anything you've ever played are rare at this point because we've been doing, this industry has existed for a long time. And so the things that make something stand out to me that make me want to play it are those ineffable things that are often still thought of like at the end of the project as opposed to the beginning of it. The example I will always use is a game is Fez. Fez is a game that was written with the audio guy, Disaster Piece, Rich Vreeland, who was part of the project from the beginning and was part of like the design of it. Like, hey, music and sound are going to be very important in this game. We need to figure this out now, not at the end when the game is done and you just need something to listen to so it's not, silent. And
Right.
And yeah, I think the visuals are important too. And like, yes, it's much easier to just worry about cubes and blobs that have easy collision detection models around them. But, people like the visuals of things. Those are the things that often grab people before they even know what type of game it is. And so, yeah, I think it is important to think about those things at the beginning, not at the end. And so, yes, I will try to insert myself into this Claude or no with that mindset.
Yeah. And I think go in and play with it. Start adding music. You can use the AIs that you do have access to figure out how. I don't know how to add audio to this thing. I haven't even looked.
Yeah.
I assume it's pretty easy.
I'll figure
and
it
everything's very event driven. So it's like on collision, call this. And one of those things is going to be like, run this music.
Yep.
However that works. Yeah. I know the way that I'm approaching this is not the way most people would approach a game. I am not approaching this in building a game. I am approaching this right now from a how do I build game building blocks so that we can just Lego this whole thing together once we get to that point and actually like build something that has an interesting soundtrack and interesting visuals, a story maybe. I'm not a big story person in games, but you know, you need some MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Interesting mechanics, right? I want to be able to say like, okay, when you pick up this object, it modifies your events in this way, right? Whatever that looks like. So I'm very much focused right now on the architecture of how I want to be able to build this thing more than anything else. And knowing like, hey, we need to know how to load new rooms. And I want that to be as simple as this door connects to that door.
Yeah.
Right. There's no reason that it should be any more complicated than that from what we're doing. And then the objects, the base classes behind all that can take care of everything else for us.
Yeah.
That's the goal anyway.
Agreed. Well, I think this is a good start. I like where this is going, and I will give some more thought to my LLM subscription usage choices.
Now that you have had a chance to look at this and actually gotten the source code, I'm probably going to start adding more things to it again. I did very intentionally pause at what I considered was like a fairly safe place.
Yeah.
It's like, here is a game. There's a game loop, you know?
It has a start, it has an end, it has a replay. Now, where do we go from here?
It has a timer so that like, you know, you got
Speed run.
things. It's randomized, so it's not the same every time. You can't just like jump in
what
there.
What more do you need in a game, right?
I think my fastest is 15 seconds to beat it because everything spawned right on top of me, basically. I was like, ooh, there's the spear. Run. But I also have lost several times at this because it's a little bit unpredictable how they bounce off the walls. Just unpredictable enough that it's interesting. I'm like, dang it. I think I can get there in time. I think, nope, I died.
Right. Well, and the minor thing I was tinkering with was their speed. That could be something that changes when they hit a wall. Like there's a slight modifier. Are they going to go slower or are they going to speed up? And you don't know.
Right.
And
Different classes of enemies can do different things. I don't have anything ranged in here yet. That's a big thing I want to figure out.
Well,
my original plan with the spear was you would throw it and have to go pick it back up. But I didn't have time for that.
Yeah, well, and the other thing that like I think is almost like a required next step is your character having some kind of life, so you don't die on one hit.
Yes, right now it's your. Yeah, I hate one hit.
Kind of I want to have. There needs to be some buffer between life and death. Yeah.
Maybe you get hit and your spear breaks and you have to go find another one. Right. Ooh. Even something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Likes. Oh, that was too many words. Like
similar
to likes in the original. Yeah. They steal your shield specifically,
your shield,
which I always hated.
The little pancake guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hate those guys.
Yeah, those are the worst.
Well, I always thought they looked like I always thought they looked like spaghetti pancakes.
The grabby hands that come out of the wall and take you back to the entrance of the dungeon. Those are annoying too.
Which I don't think are called Manos Hands of Fate.
No, they're not.
But that's always what I called them.
Yeah.
What are those called?
I don't know.
What are the dungeon hands in Zelda called? Wall Masters. That's right.
Yeah, Wall Masters.
Wall Masters, Floor Masters, or Gloom Hands, or Gloom Spawn, depending on what.
Gloom Hands. Wow, that reached all the way to Breath of the Wild, or...
No, that's where that came from. Tears of the Kingdoms. I think
I never connected those two together. Wow.
Yeah. Wall Masters is what it was called in the original Zelda, and then there was a similar one that just actually stayed on the floor, and you could see, and like actually had to fall, like it didn't just phase through everything.
Yeah.
That were Floor Masters, and those are the ones I'm most familiar with.
Yeah. Amazing.
And then it says, well, the red gloom-covered hands in Tears of the Kingdom are known as Gloom Hands or Gloom Spawn. And that makes sense why they weren't called Gloom until then, because there was no such thing as Gloom.
Awesome.
I hate those things. I still like Manos Hands of Fate better for what they are.
I'm okay with that. But I think for this session of Godot Sandbox tinkering, I think we should probably wrap it up.
Yep.
But once again, I just want to say, yes, thank you for making this. It's a good start. I will start tinkering, and we'll see where it goes. But thank you to everyone for listening to this episode of Hacking the Grepson. You can get more of our episodes at hackingthegrepson.com. We continue to try to put out an episode every other week on Wednesday. And until our next exciting episode about game development, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.